All right, I am going to start reading. I need everyone to sit forward and feet on the ground and listen. So, Sojourner's Truth by Andrea Davis Pinkney and David Pinkney. She was big, she was black, she was beautiful. Her name was Sojourner. Truth be told, she was meant for great things. Meant for speaking, meant for preaching. You may bring your strap. We don't talk when, who's talking? We don't talk when I am reading. You may bring your strap. Meant for teaching the truth about freedom. Big, black, beautiful, true. That was Sojourner. Sojourner had been born a slave. Her master named her Isabella. Sojourner's mother, Momo Betts, and her father, James Baumfree, took a first look at their child and decided to call her Belle. Seems like her newborn's cry was ringing in good news. Nothing quiet about that girl. Belle grew quickly. She was almost 6 feet tall while still a child. Along with her size 12 feet, she had hands like hams, lots of muscle on her bones too, and no one dared pick a bone with Belle, meaning a fight. She could plow Hoist Hall better than any child her age. With her big-soled shoes, she could stomp the beetles that tried to eat her master's corn. Yes. Why is your hand up?
I think he's sweaty.
Belle's strength. No, that wasn't the right one. Belle's strength and size made her valuable. She was sold away from her parents when she was 9 years old, and to 2 more masters after that. And she was so sad. This was the ugly way of slavery. Belle hated being treated as property. And she hated shucking, boiling, hauling, and working all day for her master, John Dumont. John Dumont knew how strong and capable Belle was. He promised to free her if she worked extra hard for him. Belle wanted her freedom more than anything, so she stuck to it. She worked hard for many years. She polished Dumont's brass until it gleamed. She mucked his horse stalls. She churned the Dumont family butter twice as fast. Finally, Belle went to John Dumont, ready to be freed, but John did not honor his promise. That's when Belle decided to run away. In search of freedom, Belle ran. She fled like tomorrow wasn't ever gonna come. She covered some ground child she got gone. She refused to stop until she saw hope. You need to find them. Belle ran right up to Hope's front door. She came to a farm owned by a Quaker couple, Isaac and Maria von Wagner. The Quakers were abolitionists. They believed in freedom for the people. Isaac and Maria offered Belle shelter. Look how tall she is.
Oh, wow.
When Belle's master, John Dumont, caught up with her, Isaac offered to buy Belle's service. It wasn't Belle's work that he wanted to free her. Belle's master took the money from Isaac, then he got gone. Right then, Isaac freed Belle. And even though Belle didn't have to run anymore, she set out on her own. Belle went to New York City, where she could be truly free, and oh, was that freedom sweet. Freedom made Belle want to take the heels of her size 12s and kick them up high. Belle celebrated her freedom by marching her feet straight to a job. Belle worked as a maid who made money for her work she did. No more master, no more cotton to bale, beetles to stomp, or corn to shuck. Belle soon learned that to celebrate freedom, she had to speak for beliefs. For her, freedom meant helping others. Freedom meant putting her foot down for what she knew was right. Freedom meant she would travel up and down the land to share her ideas. That's when Belle changed her name. She gave her slave name the Boot and called herself Sojourner Truth. She said the name Sojourner was just right for someone who was a traveler. And truth, well, that was what Sojourner did best. She told it like it was. Sojourner couldn't read or write, but she sure could speak her mind. And now that she was free to go wherever she wanted to find folks who could help spread the word about freedom, she met with abolitionists, women and men who spoke out against slavery. In her travels, Sojourner made a friend named Olive Gilbert. Olive was an abolitionist. She read the Bible to Sojourner. Sojourner memorized every word in that good book. She could recite the entire Bible. Wow. From the Begats to the Beatitudes, Sojourner told Olive all about her childhood as a slave. Olive wrote down Sojourner's story. In 1850, the narrative of Sojourner's Truth, a northern slave, was published. Sojourner carried her book with her everywhere. She spoke about the unfair treatment of black people and women. When Sojourner preached, she let her words fly, free as the highest dove in the sky, free as the sky itself. Sojourner's voice was packed with power. As she traveled, she learned even more about the meaning of freedom. She found that freedom is not a place. Freedom is the fire that burns inside. In Sojourner's Truth, she was full of fire. Once, when Sojourner was scheduled to speak at a rally, someone threatened to burn down the building. That didn't stop Sojourner. She said, "I will speak upon its ashes." What does it mean that she had fire inside? Does that mean she actually had a fire inside her body? What does it mean when somebody has fire inside? What is another word for that? James? Like angry. Could be angry. What else could it be? Cole? Determined. Yes. What else? She was, oh yes. Bold. Owen? Brave. Jonathan? Joy? Yes. Meaning she had a lot to say. And she had a lot of determination and emotion, and she spoke it. In 1851, how do we know this is a true story? Tessa? Because it has dates in it. In 1851, Sojourner stomped to a woman's right convention in a church in Akron, Ohio. There was no rain on the day of that convention, child, but oh, was there thunder. What struck that spot was strong and loud. It was Sojourner's step, stomp, stride. There weren't any big, black, beautiful preachers in that church, yet the main question was, should women have the same rights as men? And you can bet the men at the meeting had something to say about that. Most of the men were ministers like Sojourner. She knew all about the words in the Bible. And same as Sojourner, these men were following their own strides. One minister said that men should have superior rights and privileges because men were smarter than women. The next man to speak said that men should be allowed to boss women around because Jesus had been a man and that God wanted men to rule the world. Then came two more speakers. The first one opened his Bible and said that women were lower than men because of the Garden of Eden. Eve had given in to the serpent and had eaten the apple of temptation. The minister's friend said that women were too weak to deserve equal rights because they needed men to hold open doors for them, help them into carriages and over puddles. Really. Well, that was enough for Sojourner. She stood up, she stepped from the back of the church to the front, she stormed past the stupidity of the men who had just spoken. Sojourner put one big, black, beautiful foot in front of the other, and she stomped on the floorboards of ignorance. There you go. That were underneath. To her, the arguments made by the men were the Beatles from the past. She couldn't wait to stomp, stomp, stomp all over them. Oh, I cannot wait to hear what she has to say. Sojourner took each man's belief and slammed it down like a nail. Her fist struck a hammer's blow to the podium. Bam! She said, "You say women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches? Nobody ever helps me into a carriage, and ain't I a woman?" Bam! Down came Sojourner's hand, an iron fist smashing the lies of the day. Bam! Bam! "Look at me," Sojourner went on. "I have plowed, I have planted, and I have gathered into barns. No man could head me, and ain't I a woman?" Is there something funny? I didn't think so. Now, Sojourner was ready to preach her beliefs about what the Bible meant to her. She spoke to the man who told of God's will. "Where did your Christ come from?" she asked. "From God and a woman? Man had nothing to do with him." Then Sojourner talked about Eve and the apple in the Garden of Eden. She said, "If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, then women ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again." Down came both fists. Bam! Bam! When Sojourner was done, she told the congregation, "Now old Sojourner hasn't got nothing more to say." And that was the truth. Sojourner had spoken the honest to goodness. She was ready to step, and step she did. Her size 12 hit their stride. Off she walked. Big, black, beautiful, true. That was Sojourner. And here is the picture. Oh, look at her with Abraham Lincoln.
What? That was kind of rude what the men said.
Oh, you think? So it says, Sojourner Truth died on November 26, 1883 in Battle Creek, Michigan. She was about 86. Her friend, Olive Gilbert, visited 2 weeks before her death. Sojourner sang this hymn to Olive. I'm not going to sing it.
Aww.
This is pretty cool. It says, Sojourner Truth was born in Ulster County, New York in 1797. The exact date is unknown. She was the 9th child born to her parents. Even as a girl, Sojourner had a deep belief in God. She often felt led by God's guidance. This prompted her to take the name Sojourner's Truth. Sojourner Truth was the mother of 5 children. She often fled with them in tow. Over the course of her lifetime, she managed to obtain freedom for them all. After Sojourner's book was published, she supported herself with its proceeds. The book had an introduction by noted abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison. Sojourner's shawl, bonnet, and, in later life, her wired rim glasses became her signature dress. The clothing was simple or similar to Quaker attire. Why do you think she was giving that nod to the Quakers? Who helped her? get freedom. And who were they? Who remembers? In the story. Were y'all listening? Who helped her get freedom? Who bought her freedom? Ella. But what were they?
They were people who believed that slavery was.
Yeah, they were abolitionists, but they were Quakers. Remember Isaac and Maria von Wagner? The Quakers were abolitionists, and they bought her freedom. So that's why she dressed like a Quaker often, is because she was showing their respects to them. Yes.
What's a Quaker?
A Quaker is a religion. It's a form of a religion. In the early 1850s, Sojourner had become a popular lecturer in many states. Posters announced her upcoming engagements. She spoke to standing room only crowds. She often sang hymns during her speeches. A woman's abolitionist group made Sojourner a white banner that said, "Proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all the inhabitants thereof." She sometimes wore this for public appearances. Where are we going to get? Okay, as she traveled, Sojourner kept a book of life, a scrapbook of mementos. On October 29, 1864, Sojourner met President Abraham Lincoln, who signed her book for anti-Sojourner truth. So Abraham Lincoln, that is a pretty awesome picture of her and Abraham Lincoln. She's not alive. You met Sojourner? Oh, I was like, well, you must be really, really old if you met her. Gotcha. Okay, now I was confused there for a minute. But yes, that is some pretty amazing pictures of her and Abraham Lincoln. I think probably this is all of Abraham Lincoln. This was tall. How tall was Abraham Lincoln?
Oh, I know.
I should know
6
that.
and a half.
Who's tall?
It says that on my. It says that on my. It says it on. Yeah. It says. It says. I think. No, he's not the tallest. He's the tallest.
Yeah, that's very tall.
I said it's three.
Probably close to that. He might be taller than that. I think he's like 6'5", 6'6", something like that. He was
He's
really
6 and a half.
especially with his big hat. He's really tall.
He's not 6 and a half. It's 6.5. He's not 6.
6'5". Thank you, boy. So yeah, he was a tall. So that is an awesome story, and it is a true story, which makes it even more special. So this is all facts. What is an abolitionist? Just from reading the story, what would you think is an abolitionist?
Someone who believes slavery is wrong.
Yes, they fought for slavery to be done. And so we heard that word a lot in this story. Sojourner was also friends with an abolitionist. Does anybody remember her name? Helped write her book. The Narrative of Sojourner's Truth, a Northern Slave. Yes, Olive. Yes, Olive Gilbert. So an abolitionist was someone who did not believe in slavery and actually fought hard against it. So there we have it. That is so fun. I love true stories. And I love the picture of her with Abraham Lincoln. All right. So that's our story for the week, which is also apropos because we are talking about slavery right now in history. Our books are coinciding with our history. So I will read a little bit from Escape from Lemoncello's Library. So while I read, you may doodle, draw, But we are still going to listen, correct? We're not going to lay down and take a nap. Yes. Can you do what? No, we're not going to do, then you're not going to be focusing. So what is Kyle trying to do? What is he kind of messed up, and he was supposed to write an essay to get where for an overnight visit? Owen. Yes, made by Mr. Lemoncello, who creates games. And so when we ended last week, it was a while ago, remember Kyle was trying to write an email to Mr. Lemoncello. Did it work?
No.
No, it did not. So that is kind of where we're at. I'm trying. Why did I have too much? Yes. So it said that was a note that was not, the message was not received. So now I'm sure he's feeling what?
Depressed.
Yeah, bummed out. Is he going to get to go to the library? Heading back to school on Tuesday, Kyle knew he had to put on a brave face. He smiled as he walked with his class toward the auditorium for a special early morning assembly. The one where Mr. Luigi L. Lemoncello himself would announce the winners of the Library Lock-In Essay Contest. I hope he picks yours, Kyle whispered to Akimi. Thanks, I do too. But the lock-in won't be as much fun without you. Well, when it's over and the library is officially over, you can take me on a tour. That's exactly what I'm going to do, if I win. If you don't, I am sending a flaming squirrel after Mrs. Cameron. For his assembly, the 7th graders, most of whom were 12 years old, were told to sit in the front rows, close to the stage. That made Kyle feel a little better. At least he get a chance to see Mr. Lemoncello up close and personal. But his hero wasn't even on stage. Just the principal, the school librarian, and a redheaded woman in high-heeled shoes who Kyle didn't recognize. She sat up straight like someone had slipped a yardstick down the back of her bright red business suit. Her glasses were bright red, too. Thanks, Dr. Yanni Zinchenko, gushed Miguel Fernandez, who was sitting on Kyle's right. Oh, that's Dr. Yanina Zinchenko, gushed Miguel Fernandez, who was sitting on Kyle's right. We've heard of her before. Where did we hear of her before? She was very integral in designing what? Remember, she was way back in the beginning, and she was helping design what? Ella. Yes. She is the most famous librarian in the whole wide world. All right, boys and girls, said the principal at the podium. Settle down, quiet, please. It is my great honor to introduce you to the head librarian of the new Alexandriaville Public Library, Dr. Yanina Zinchenko. Everybody clapped. The tall lady in the red outfit stood to the microphone. Good morning. Her voice was breathy, just a hint of a Russian accent. 12 years ago, the town lost its one and only public library, and I'm not going to try talking in a Russian accent. When it was torn down to make room for an elevated parking garage. Back then, many said the internet had rendered the old-fashioned library obsolete, that a new parking garage would attract shoppers to the boutiques and dress shops near the old bank building. But the library's demolition also meant that those of you who are now 12 years old have lived their entire lives without a public library. She looked down at the front rows. This is why, to kick off our summer reading program, 12-year-olds will be selected to be the very first to explore the wonders awaiting inside Mr. Lemoncello's extraordinary new library. You will, of course, need your parents' permission. We have slips for you to take home. You will also need a sleeping bag, a toothbrush, and, if you please, a change of clothes. She smiled mysteriously. You might consider packing 2 pairs of underwear. Okay, thought Kyle, that's bizarre. Did the librarian really think 7th graders weren't potty trained? There will be movies, food, fun, games, and prizes. Also, each of our 12 winners will receive a $500 gift card good toward the purchase of Lemoncello games and gizmos. Wow, that's a lot of moolah. Oh man, $500 worth of free games and gear? Kyle sank a little lower in his seat. The next time someone gave him an extra credit essay assignment, he turned it in early. And now, here to announce our winners, the man behind the new library, the master gamer himself, Mr. Luigi Lemoncello. Dr. Zinchenko gestured to her left. The whole auditorium swung their heads. People were clapping and whistling and cheering, but nobody came on stage. The applause stopped, and then, on the opposite side of the stage, Kyle heard a very peculiar sound. It was a cross between a burp and a squeak from a squeeze toy. Oh my. Chapter 8. Over on the side of the stage, a shoe that looked like a peeled open banana appeared from behind a curtain. When it landed, the shoe burp squeaked. As a second banana shoe burp squeaked onto the floor, Kyle looked up, and there he was, Mr. Lemoncello. He had loose and floppy limbs and was dressed in a 3-piece black suit with a bright red tie. His black, broad-brimmed hat was cocked at a crooked angle atop his curly white hair. Kyle was so close, he could see a sly twinkle sparkling in Mr. Lemoncello's coal-black eyes. Treading very carefully, Mr. Lemoncello walked toward the podium. The burp squeaks in his shoes seemed to change pitch, depending on how hard he landed on his heels. He added a couple little jig steps, a quick hop and a stutter step skip, and yes, his shoes were squeaking out a song. Pop goes the weasel. On the pop, Mr. Lemoncello popped behind the podium. The crowd went wild. Mr. Lemoncello politely bowed and said very softly, thank you, grazie, grazie. He bent forward so his mouth was maybe an inch away from the microphone. He spoke very timidly, very softly. He wiggled his ears, straightened his back, but then he said in a crisp, clear voice, I went to the Alexandriaville Public Library where a wonderful librarian named Mrs. Gail Tobin helped me learn how to speak like this. If 2 witches were watching 2 watches, which witch would watch which watch? I can also speak while upside down and underwater, but not today because I just had this suit dry cleaned and do not want to get it wet. Mr. Lemoncello bounced across the stage like a happy grasshopper. And then, children, if I may call you that, which I must because I have not yet memorized all your names, even though I am working on it, what do you think is the most amazingly incredible thing you'll find inside your wondrous new library? Besides, of course, all the knowledge you need to do, and for you to do anything and everything you ever want to do. No one said anything. They were too mesmerized by Mr. Lemoncello's rat-a-tat words. Would it be robots silently whizzing their way through the library, restocking the shelves? Number B, the Electronic Learning Center with 36 plasma screen TVs, all connected to flight simulators and educational video games. Whoa. C, the Wonder Dome, lined with 10 giant video screens It can make the whole building feel like a rocket ship blasting off into outer space. I want to go to this library. The game room, someone shouted. The robots, the video dome. Mr. Lemoncello raced back to the podium and made a buzzing noise into the microphone. Sorry. The correct answer is, and not just because of Winn-Dixie, is all of the above. The crowd went wild. Mr. Lemoncello whirled around to face his head librarian. Dr. Zinchenko, will you kindly help me pass out our first 12 library cards? It was time to announce the essay winners. Dr. Zinchenko placed a stack of 12 shiny cards on the podium in front of Mr. Lemoncello. Please, he said, as I call your name, come join me on stage. Miguel Fernandez. Yes! Miguel jumped up out of his seat. Akimi Hughes. Woohoo! Kyle was thrilled to see his two friends be the first ones called. Andrew Peckelman, Bridget Wage, Sierra Russell, Yasmin Smith Snyder. Yasmin squealed when her name was called. Sean Keegan, Haley Bailey, Rose Vermont, and Kayla Corson. 10 kids, all the same age as Kyle, were up on stage with his idol, Mr. Lemoncello. He was not. Only 2 more chances. As if reading his mind, Mr. Lemoncello said, only 2 more, and tapped a pair of library cards on the podium. Charles Chittington, gosh, really, he dashed up to the podium, and started pumping Mr. Lemoncello's hand. Thank you, sir. This is such an honor. Truly, I mean that. Thank you, Charles. May I have my hand back? I need it to flip over this final card. Of course, sir, but I cannot wait to spend the night in your library, or as I like to call it, your Athenaeum, because as I said in my essay, when you open a book, you open your mind. Finally, Charles, the brown-noser, let go of Mr. Lemoncello's hand and went over to the line up with the other winners. And who do you think got the final card? This should be interesting. And last but not least, said Mr. Lemoncello, Kyle Keeley, who is the main character. Kyle could not believe his ears. He thought he was dreaming. But when Akimi started waving for him to come up, dazed, Kyle made his way up the stairs to join the others on stage. Mr. Lemoncello handed Kyle a library card. His name and the number 12 were printed on the front. 2 book covers, I Love You, Stinky Face, and The Napping House, were on the back. Let's all pose for a picture, please, said the principal. When everybody moved into position for the photographer, Kyle found himself standing right next to Mr. Lemoncello. He swallowed hard. I'm a big fan, sir, he said, his voice kind of shaky. Well, thank you, and remind me, you are? I am Kyle. Sir, Kyle Keeley. Ah, yes, the boy who proved what I've always known to be true. The game is never over till it is over. That is interesting. What do you think that means? The game isn't over until it's over. I wonder what Mr. Lemoncello saw in Kyle's very odd essay. Who is surprised he won?
Balloons. I lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting. I'm very curious why he got into the contest. All right, we are done.
Candy.
Yes.